this afternoon session. I want we are very grateful and happy to be here, and I want to thank the embassy, the Irish embassy, and also the William Butler Yeats chair and Alcalá for this all this partnership with our association, Brazilian Association of Irish Studies. And for the session, for the afternoon session, I invite Professor Marisol Ladrón for her lecture. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I have to sit and read about a little bit. So, Professor Marisol she's a professor at the Department of Modern, she's a professor of English and Irish literature at the University of Alcalá, where she has been teaching since 1994. Trained in the fields of English philology, Hispanic philology, and psychology, her research focuses on gender studies and literature written by women. Her publications include Breve Introdução a la Literatura Comparada, 1994, and Las Poéticas de James Joyce e Luís Martins Santos, 2005. She has edited the monographs Postcolonial and Gender Perspectives in Irish Studies, 2007, and Family and Dysfunction in Contemporary Irish Narrative and Film, 2016, and has co-edited Global Ireland, Current Perspectives in Literature and the Visual Arts, 2011, as well as two studies on feminist criticism. She's currently Vice President for Quality Management at the University of Alcalá and Vice Chairperson Europe of the International Association of Irish Studies. Thank you, Professor Marisol. This opening lecture is entitled In the Name of God, Human Intervention in the Natural Environment in Emma Donoghue's Haven. Thank you, Professor Marisol.
Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, I love those. No? Closer. Thank you. Okay, well. It's a bit intimidating anyway, but okay, thanks very much for that presentation, Elisa. I'm extremely honored and I'm very happy to be here today. I'm very grateful to be here, and I want to thank Marina Botanines to be here now, and I will tell her person later. She's a colleague and a friend, and I'm also very grateful for inviting me to Ladrón, whom I met many years ago, and also let me mention Maria Tran, whom I really like. This is the spirit and the energy and the started our studies in Brazil, and I think you've been such a source of inspiration for all the others that I think Laura has just taken that energy, and also Mariana and many of the others. So I'm extremely happy to be here. I'm also happy to be here because it is my second time in Sao Paulo. I was here invited again by Laura and Nina 15 years ago in 2009. And at that time, when they asked me to propose a title for a talk, I've been working for almost 30 years in women writers. So I was thinking of two women writers that we that were really important to talk about and who I thought were underrated at that time. And those were Ladrón and Donoghue. Now, Judy Martin is probably still a bit underrated, even though a lot of criticism has come out in later years, but she has a distinct voice in that literature. I wanted to pick some from the North and some from the Republic, and those were my choices, and the two of them can be more different, okay? But I've followed their work. I actually started reading them in the early 1990s, and I've followed their work all over. Judy Martin is nowadays well regarded, but not as much as she should be. Whereas Emma Donoghue, when I talked about her in 2009, I really wanted to kind of bring this idea of being a distinct voice in Irish literature, but she wasn't yet half what she is now. So I'm very happy that on this occasion, when I was asked again to propose the topic, I thought I would again talk about Emma Donoghue because I've never stopped writing her work. I think her work is amazing. When I was here in 2009, she hadn't even published Room. Room is precisely the novel that placed her in the star group, gave her I suppose, the popularity that she has now. Even though I don't think Room is the masterpiece people think it is, I think The Wonder and Other works by her, and I love it. But anyway, she obviously Room was filmed, and it was got 4 Academy Awards, it won an Oscar, and many of her novels have been, not many, but some of her novels have been filmed as well. So I'm very happy to be here again talking about Emma Donoghue because it, in a way, proves that many writers will always stay in their space because they always have something to say, they keep having things to say. So when I have to think about the title of the symposium, Narratives of Responsibility, Emma Donoghue came to mind because she's extremely important. And for those of you who know her work, it's very extensive work, but at least a few of her novels, you will know that she is very committed to social issues and current issues that really need the need for social justice. And it's not only the triad of gender, class, and race, which are always present in her writing, but also environmental ethics, which is part of the talk I'm going to present today. So before I actually dive into the topic, considering that probably most of you have not read Haven, and it is a novel that it was very well received, but it's very recent. It hasn't, I don't think it has a wide readership because it is an historical novel. It is set in Central Ireland. So considering that, I'm going to work on kind of rely on post-humanities theories. I'm trying to make my lecture as comprehensive as possible so that you can follow me. And so before that, I'd like to just very briefly introduce Emma Donoghue. For those of you who do not know her, she has a talent for retelling, for dressing, and for redressing. She's prolific, she's multifaceted, and her writing has transversed all kinds of literature, and perhaps not only novels, short stories. What you see on screen now are only novels. Okay, she's also written film scripts and drama scripts, and she's written drama plays for the radio, short stories, literary history. In fact, she has a PhD she was awarded a PhD from the University of Cambridge on friendship among women from the 19th century onwards, which is a running theme in her writing. But she's not only transversed different genres, but she's also nationalities. She is Irish, she was born in Ireland. She's very Irish in many of the topics that she kind of addresses. But at the same time, she's been living in Canada now for almost 30 years. She moved to Canada for love. Very often she gets asked this question, did you move because she's a lesbian woman? Did you move to Ireland, from Ireland because you lived in a homophobic society? And she said, no, I moved for love. She met a Canadian woman, she fell in love. They have 2 kids and they live in Ontario, Canada. And because he's been so famous and so well known, obviously the Canadian readership and in general the North American readership have claimed her. So that you will see her now labeled as Irish Canadian. And she doesn't care, she doesn't mind which label we actually use to address her. So she's Irish, she's Canadian, she's both, she's everything. So it's engaging issues such as dislocation, displacement, queerness, racism, environment, the female body, motherhood. And you can see there from her early lesbian romances, Stify and Hood, which were really important in Ireland at the moment because Stify was published only 1 year after homosexuality had been decriminalized in Ireland, so they were really important books. But after Hood, she started writing historical fiction with Islamic King, Black Mask, and The Seal Letter. That's a trilogy formed by maverick women, misfits society, sophisticated women that she unearths from history, and they are women who do not conform to the world. And from then on, she has written historical fiction apart from other novels set in contemporary times. These three novels, this trilogy was also followed by From Music that was set in the United States. Some of her novels were set in Ireland, some others in Great Britain, like for instance, To See a Letter. From Music is set in the United States. And since then, she's engaged with issues such as cross-cultural connection, cross-gender connections, gender subversion, identity, fatherhood, for instance, in Akin, race, yes, in landing, religion is very present in the wonder, medicine is a wonderful book that one of the stars that I truly recommend about the great flu pandemic, probably called Spanish flu, and the latest novel is that was it's about the love and friendship of two women in the 19th century. And she's just finished her 60th novel, The Paris Express, and that will be coming out next March 2025. She has more than 20 works of fiction at the moment. These works attest to is her interest in pressing concerns and urgent issues that need to be addressed and need to be explored, and with the idea of persisting in action. So, although Donoghue's work is very diverse, very plural, and there are two main concerns that I've been able to identify in all her writings, and that I believe sustain the architecture of her novels, which are enclosed spaces and historical settings. The enclosed spaces are very important because most novels are character-driven novels. That's why some of them are easy to be filmed. Now they're filmed in the Golden Stars, or maybe some others will be filmed as well. And these two frameworks, space and time, are really important for us as human beings because space and time define who we are and how we interrelate with the world. In many of the novels, these two frames, space and time, are further problematized by queerness, which is precisely what we have here. So, what I want to say is that these are not inconsequential metaphors, cultural metaphors, but political signs of contestation, because their association with the universal, white, male, heteronormative, anthropocentric order has governed the construction of the expectations that we have of the self. And that's what she tries to deconstruct and transgress through the narrative. So these two concepts are precisely in her pagan to be the focus of my analysis today for two different reasons. So the first one I mentioned before because it's an novel that has received very little attention in spite of the political commitment that it has. And secondly, because the novel was marketed as an adventure story of survival, on an uninhabited land, a kind of Robinson Crusoe narrative. Although the author's intentions and concerns about the environment clearly go beyond these simplistic impressions. Also, among all her historical novels, Haven addresses the nature and human debate. And it's very important the way she talks about the uses and the abuses of nature that human beings have wielded for centuries. Now, I'm now connecting with the theme of the conference. We all live in critical, difficult times, and there are various crises that we are actually facing, and they're being presented as threats to our stability as a human species. We cannot say the opposite, that we should focus our consistent and irresponsible use of the environment, together with our indiscriminate use and abuse of non-human waste, of use and abuse of environmental resources, is what places us precisely at the end of the example we're going to say, at the end of this climate midst of the climatic emergency that threatens the stability of the planet. Now, these concerns are not new, but it's new is our attitude to these concerns. So, in recent decades, these concerns have become urgent and have been addressed from several fields, including the humanities. So, writers, creators, artists have often used literature as an instrument to mobilize and provoke action. And that is the case, it is my belief, that is the case with Donoghue's Mr. Haven. Haven is said, I will later give you a larger summary of the novel, but just for a start, Haven is set in an island that is known today as Skellig and Michael. It is the largest of the Skellig Islands in Ireland. It is a protected natural space. It is a paradise for biodiversity, and it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1996. Access nowadays is very limited to wild systems and sea and weather conditions, obviously. But the remains of the Christian monastery reveal that there was human life, and that human life survived there for some time under extreme circumstances. So therefore, taking these ideas as the historical vestige for the essential motif of Donoghue's novel, Donoghue imagines a likeable past for those first inhabitants in what has been too loosely described to me as an adventurous story survival, whereas she has claimed to have engaged in a warning against excessive tourism in Ireland and environmental destruction. So now enthusiasts of the well, this is the Skelligs, and you can see there the great Skellig Michael, the big island and the small one. That is the paradise of biodiversity. And I want to emphasize on how enthusiasts of the Star Wars saga will probably be familiar with the landscape of the island, because it appears in two episodes of the Star Wars, episode 7 and episode 8, and The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, as Luke Skywalker Eden-like retirement, and despite, and I quote, despite the objections of conservationists concerned about the impact of local life for its vulnerability, since it is a home to bird species including puffins, peregrine falcons, and guillemots. End of quote. So nowadays, if you go there is only, although there's only the remains of these monastic settlement, and there are hundreds of stones there to climb it up, still it has become a very popular place for people to go and visit, and it has become extremely popular. So set in the 7th century, Donoghue's narrative delves into the harsh voyage of an arrival of 3 months to this remote island off the west coast of Ireland, driven by a visionary dream of one of them, the leader, a friar, who believed that he was in a holy mission of building a church. So since finding resources in such hostile environment is a matter of life and death, their display of unlimited power to exploit the island and by means of abusing the 2 monks proves fatal. So turned into subaltern subjects as a result of their obedient vows that they had just promised, environmental destruction and human cruelty would be security now. So bearing these aspects in mind and drawing on theories of eco-critical and ecological responsibility, the anthropocene and earth care, in the present notes that I want to do is to analyze novels in light of the consequences of the colonial appropriation of the land and of the people, and of her own overall criticism against the undeletable human imprint on nature. I finally wanted to argue that literature can be instrumental in bringing awareness of the present ecological crisis through climate change, the limits of planetary resources, and the need to protect our environment. So, and also, I just point, I would like to link this idea with what we mentioned this morning in the lecture about the third space, and also I want to link it to point covering graphic, which we'll be talking tomorrow, in her abstract with academic galleries. I see you want to talk about poetry as a means through which we not only receive an aesthetic experience, but we can have poetry as a means through which we can think, we can become aware of whatever subject or whatever issue the author is trying to make. So I will be arguing that literature to me can be instrumental in bringing awareness and kind of shaking awareness about certain things. Now, the natural world has not always been concerned has not always been a concern for human beings. So in fact, our attitudes have changed drastically in the last decades, and we have started to experience dramatic consequences of the exploitation of the environment. So present times are actually urging us to think and to reflect on our relationship with nature, with the environment, with the ecosystem, and also on our responsibility to respect the needs and the demands of non-human life, because we need to acknowledge that non-human life is as much part of us as we are part of them. So within the post-humanist current that has developed in the last decades out of an awareness of anthropocentricism, the concept of relationality has emerged to precisely explore this mutually dependent relationship, addressing how we connect, relate, and respect the environment. There are many authors that have applied to this concept. For instance, Elisa and Marisol have insisted that we need a planetary ethics of relationality between the human, the non-human, and the environment. Also, within this post-human paradigm, Rossi and DLT postulates and postulates that we have contributed to this center and this phrase, the human, which is now defined as, and I quote, a relational subject constituted in and by multiplicity that works across differences and is also internally differentiated. Now, though grandiosities and theories are usually contextualized and explained by the times we are living now, obviously the advances of industrialization, of the global economy, liberal markets, and so on, I want to argue that these concerns are timeless, and they were also present and pertinent to Donoghue's novel. So I would mainly argue that this post-human predicament of the necessity to think again and think harder about the status of human subjectivity and the ethical relations and norms are really important in our times. These also kind of concept of relationality was also put forward by Andrew Benjamin when he talked about a relational ontology and about which is interlinked with ethics, and talks about how we need to relate to all kinds of others. Now, we won't be relying too much on theory, as I mentioned before, because I know it's a text is part of you, but I just wanted to present the framework of my discussion. So, I'm presenting that, I'm sorry. Now, Horizon 2022 Haven in this study looked very unlike previous Donoghue's texts because of the spiritual and religious concern, because it is grounded in Christian belief. But as the novel unfolds, there are recurrent interests and motifs that are part of the whole literary production. One of them is the fanatism of religion and the dangerous extreme ethos, which is perhaps one of the most significant ones, which was also present in The Wonder, which is masterpiece. You can separate the novel. I would recommend you to watch the film, which is also very good. So as it is common in Donoghue's novels, there is always a final twist that both explains and changes the course of the events, usually in the form of a concealed secret that with sexual undertones about sexual identity and queerness. So the novel is set in what looks like a haven. A haven is a refuge, it's a place of safety, it's a retreat life. According to the prior, it is the place where they want to go to find purity. And this is a story of survival. Discloses a story of a narrative of abuse, both in personal and territorial terms. So the novel is set in the 7th century, and he reconstructs the story of a priest, a prior, who has a dream. Rather than a dream, it is a vision. And his vision, he thinks that God has a mandate for him. He has to set up a monastery on an island. So with that purpose in mind, he chooses two companions, two monks of different background, age and character, with whom they set on this dangerous and most unlikely journey. He warns them that they shouldn't fear anything because God will provide, but also that there is no turning back, as they will never be able to go back to Ireland. So these two companions are the two Abrantes. He's a mature man who has recently embraced faith. He is a widow, he was married, but he has an ability to build anything from nothing, and he's perfect for the journey. And almost a Trian is the most important character in the novel. He's a young man whose compassion, human values, and ability make him really naturally good, and he has a talent also for working and for obeying, so he's perfect. Now, setting on sail and drifting, into the Atlantic, upon their arrival in the island, they start a new life. It is a virgin island. It's very important. It is a virgin island, a paradise for autochthonous plants, vegetation, and thousands of birds. And the prior is happy because he's found this untouched island. Because, as he argued, if the island has never been settled, that means if an island has been settled, it means it's too fertile. So their purpose is precisely the opposite. So with that purpose in mind, they use any possible resource provided by nature so that they can survive. However, neither the wild birds nor the scarce fish nor the native plants is a stay. Their struggle to survive is aggravated by the harsh and inhuman treatment of the prior, who is unable to see beyond his irrationality and his obsession to pursue his visionary dream because he's been commanded by God. So that's what Emma is trying to do, is trying to present the consequences of an excess of religion. So his cruelty, his violence, his fanatism make him a colonialist, ready to punish and to repress the subaltern others, who are forced also to inflict as much damage on the island as to themselves. Until there is a final twist in the novel, and in the end, it's the lack of ethics, the lack of these ethics of rationality between nature and culture, between the human and the non-human, who brings the drama. So Donoghue was inspired to write a novel after she took a boat trip off the coast of County Kerry, when she saw the two islands that she hadn't seen before, and she said that by the end of the ride she had the whole story in her mind. Now she tried to visit the place on several occasions, but she couldn't, and then in the end she was derailed by the COVID pandemic, and still she did all the research to write the novel. And precisely in the course of writing the novel she realized that she would never want to go there, and that on the one hand it wouldn't make any difference on the writing of the novel, and on the other, her novel is precisely a warning against excessive tourism on this protected landscape. So what we know, I'm talking now in historical terms about the islands, is that archaeological records have shown that in between the 6th and the 8th centuries, a monastery was built there, and they think it was probably abandoned in the 12th century. Meanwhile, the Vikings and there were other invasions in the island. But after the 12th century, there are no human remains or traces of anything. So Donoghue said that she wasn't concerned about that. That is not her interest. She has explained, and I want to quote her, that she was interested in the first men that put their feet there. She said she was interested, and I quote, in her first attempt, an interest in failure. How fast could things go wrong, as a lesson in how not to settle an island. The archaeological report was extremely useful in telling me how rash and perverse it would have been to found an ultra-isolationist retreat without keeping those life-saving things to the rest of the world. So that's how my analysis of the novel will come out. So from my perspective, Donoghue is trying to present this clear, direct criticism against the colonial creation of land and mind. And it is, in her case, it is carried out by exploring the excesses of religion and fanaticism in the hands of a wrong leader. Art is a prior, precisely he is defined in the novel as a scholar, a priest, a hermit, the bearing of the word king, someone who's read any very book written, and also a living saint, as can't be wrong, can't be, that was so permanent. This prophetic statement, rather than identifying him as a true leader, places him as an authoritarian anti-leader who will not only accept any weakness, error, or idleness in the others, and who, as a consequence, will only bring destruction. So believing that the world is corrupted, he's really enthralled by this vision, and he wants to withdraw from the world because he wants to have a pure life. Donoghue has explained that these, in the medieval Ireland, these kind of settlements and these establishments of small brotherhoods were part of the misogynist mindset of the times that would keep them away from women's temptation and lust, while obviously other sins, worse sins, will await these men. So Art, the prior, is not only a true believer that he is in a holy mission commanded by God, but he also believes that this island was actually set on earth for him to be discovered. So he presents himself as a godlike figure, and he extends his limited powers to any living creature there. So as a result, obviously, he's of this authoritarian irrational faith, he's delusional. So even if there is nothing to eat and they are really kind of dying of hunger, he still believes that it is God's mandate and that God will provide. So their days are spent praying, fasting, and working, following, of course, Saint Patrick, who for the prior is the holiest of the saints, because he was the first one to bring the gospel to Ireland. Therefore, they practice the ora et labora ethos, and they use faith and their strength. But their island is no Eden. And while Cormac and Tryon, when they engage in fishing, anything eatable or copying the scriptures, sowing or protecting them from damage caused by the wind and rain, Art, the prior, spends his days meditating and praying. So he insists that they have to nurture their souls before they feed their bodies, and therefore, the drama will come. So, for instance, for him, carving a cross, building an altar, or erecting a stone church are more urgent and more important than actually securing their survival. So, taking his fanaticism to an extreme, he's really harsh not only on the others but also on himself, and he self-punishes himself whenever he finds that he's being arrogant or not humble, and even though all the others are compassionate about him, he says that there should be no mistakes would never be allowed. So basically what he does is follow the Bible, and that's what he says. He reads the Bible and he takes the Bible at face value. And if we go to the Bible, to the Genesis, according to the Bible, nature was created by God, who saw that it was good. Then, after God created nature, God created Adam. He created Adam in his own image. And then he created Eve after Adam's rib, so that they could, as a quote you have there, so that both could be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moved upon the earth. So these lines of the Genesis are rephrased by Art in the novel, and obviously places him then as the first humans who will feel always and from then on as superior to non-human creatures. And that is the source of Donoghue's criticism. So, however, the Bible is not free from contradictions, and Tryon, one of them, is quick to tell the prior that that's not true, because Adam and Eve only ate fruits and nuts. And it was only after the flood that God told his people that everything that lived and moved would be eaten. So it's interesting to actually analyze the Bible and the influences of the Bible on how the theory of ecology has developed, because this has proved to be very controversial. And many writers like Stephen Gross, you have in the screen, he believes that this analysis of the Bible is misleading and it has misinterpreted the basic ideas, but that this has been the source of natural destruction that we have brought to the planet. So in this analysis of ecology of Genesis, he actually addresses the issues of increased pollution, global warming, and devastation brought by what he calls the anthropogenic lifestyle. And he argues that this is the way humans harm the environment in different ways. But he argues that we should interpret the Bible in a reverse way, and that Christianity should be read as a means through which to build a community of people who develop a close ecological relationship with the planet. So admitting that the story of the creation presented in the Genesis actually validates the anthropocentric relationship that we have nowadays, it goes to defend the opposite. I won't read the quote because it's quite long, but this is just, I want to present you this controversy that is taking place nowadays of people who defend that we are destroying the planet and who say that obviously this is the inheritance of how Christianity actually introduced the Genesis to us and how nature was created. Also, in terms of art, and go back to the character, we can see a megalomaniac attitude, a godlike attitude, because despite their unlikely survival, he imagines, he wishes that he will be the only founder of the island, and that there will be pilgrimages that will fantasize about his life. And ironically, this is what is happening nowadays. But although most people nowadays would visit Skelly Islands for the Star Wars saga and for his, the establishment of the monastery, but it's a great irony that this is happening nowadays. Now, as a consequence of this religious fanaticism, we have two kinds of colonization: the colonization of the mind and the colonization of the land. So obviously, we have to bear in mind that he's a prior, and a prior means first among equals. So he is hierarchically sanctioned by the church to be above his other brothers. So that's why he looks down on the two of them. And according to Donoghue, she wanted to draw on this character because he wanted to present a kind of a cult leader, someone that would behave worse and worse and worse, because he would have total power over people. Now, how is this power conveyed in an island? How is this power conveyed with this government when there's nothing? Well, it's by religion and through the votes. So when Cormac and Triac are chosen among all the other brothers in the community, they feel absolutely privileged because they have been chosen by God, and they pledge to him to the vows of poverty, obedience, and chastity. So therefore, they are doomed by their own votes. Silence is what we would relegate them to be subalterns and to be colonized by them. Unable to think or act their own minds for fear of punishment, they would be colonized by him. So making them believe that they are serving God in the end, they are serving himself. So even though the two characters present the critical minds and the voices of Donoghue, the voice of the prior is always set against them. So Triumph, for instance, is appalled, even though they know they have to eat to survive, but Triumph is appalled by the damage they're inflicting on the island and the creatures. And he actually says that they are murdering hundreds of birds and using them for fuel. And he argues that they were there before us, before human beings. And he's actually anticipating a post-Anthropocene view of the planet, this centering the place of human beings. But art, again, resorts to the Bible and explains that the island is theirs and that God placed all resources for their own use. So there are other instances in which we can see how religion has played to provide in that regard as well, because when Triumph finds it all selfish, that is rejected. They can't eat shellfish because, as the book of Leviticus says, and I quote, every water creature without scales and fins is unclean. And so it's well known for stirring up lust, therefore they can't eat anything from the sea. And they know that this is wrong because in the monastery before coming to inhabit the island, they would eat mussels. But again, that is because they're subjected to the prior of obedience and silence, they can't say a word. So there are many instances in the novel when they are punished for doing the opposite. Like for instance, Julian is involved in copying from the circus sculptures because they want to be the legacy there. And when he breaks a little jar of red ink, he has to use his own blood to write it down, because he has a sort of punishment. So also there are many instances in the novel, like for instance, Julian doesn't forgive the prior when he chops the only tree, there's only one tree in the island, and it's a skinny rowan, and it's a symbol of survival. So actually, when the prior chops off the tree, that's the beginning of their downfall. So at that moment, the prior's madness is seen under their eyes to them. And the colonization of the mind is obviously connected to the colonization of the land, the colonialization of the land. Even though, Donoghue's novel forces us to think about the precarious relationship between the humans and the non-humans. Now, of course, they have to survive, and of course, they need to live and to eat. But at the same time, because there is so much violence exerted on the island, what she does is to make sure that nature will pay back, and we show them that this is an inhospitable and uncomfortable place. As Michael Cronin explains, the natural world is profoundly shaped by human agency, and human agency is in turn deeply influenced by the constructs it uses to interpret or understand that world. So, Donoghue takes a significant amount of her space in the novel to describe in full detail the natural world, species, including the ox, insect birds, plants, and the different kinds of fishes, and so on. And of the three characters, Triad is the only one sensible about non-human life. He admires how free birds are, and how free of guilt they are, and how they do not accumulate anything, and they're happy creatures. And he even tries to understand the language. And the prior has a completely different view of that. And he insists that Skellig Island was set for them to be conquered because it was a miracle, and it's presented to them as a kind of cathedral. That's a metaphor that is used all the time. And he says the higher up, the closer to heaven. And that's why they actually inhabit Skellig Michael, the big one, and not the small one. So, in fact, when they settle there, the prior invokes the Archangel Michael, and he says, by the power of Michael, I spell and banish any evil from this place. This island is mine. And then he starts a ritual of offering a big animal, and there are images of really extreme violence exerted on animals, completely unnecessary. Now, the emphasis really placed on the fact that it's a virgin island, and that it is a pathless, quite untrodden island. And very ironically, it's very interesting that when he emphasizes this idea of being a virgin island, he says that, I quote, it has no four-footed beasts on it. Of course, there are no four-footed beasts on it because there are two-footed feet on the island. So this is the integration that Emma Donoghue is doing. So obviously, as a consequence of the way they mistreat the island, the destruction will come. So in spite of the hardness of their lives, actually what provokes the dramatic ending is not the lack of food or the lack of means. It is art's irrationality and intolerance. And the reason that one of them, Triam is a dog, okay, in Irish. So according to that, he's a left-hander, and that obviously was considered to be a hindrance, a negative thing in medieval Ireland. So he's very aware of his misfortune because he uses the left hand, and that is an advance in the novel of the other misfortunes that will come on him. So he's really concerned about having that weakness, because if that doesn't allow him to write down properly in the scriptures, because he says that his own fingers obscure the writings after he's written them, because he writes as his left hand. But that is a kind of introduction to that we present what comes after that. So when he becomes very ill at some point in the novel, and Cormac has to undraw his trousers, he's shocked by what he sees, and he sees that his body is not a normative body. He doesn't have the male genitals as males should have. So Donoghue's twist at the end of the novel highlights the existence of non-normative bodies throughout history. And the importance of these, on the performativity of gender and fluidity, is clearly addressed in the novel, when the novel shows that in the early medieval island is really much more plural and fluid than it is often supposed, and that's when the reason of the clear motif to write the novel comes to light. So Trian has a kind of an intersex identity, a queer appearance in the eyes of others, which obviously make him a prey of violent intolerance. So his body is, according to medieval belief, his body is outside the logic of normativity. So these individuals were considered very impure, not only oddities but impure, because he was neither male or female, he had to be punished. Now Cormac offers a different view, and he actually invokes Cuchulainn. And he says that maybe he's neither male nor female, he's both. So he's as great as Cuchulainn, because Cuchulainn had 14 chopped fingers, and that strangeness made him extraordinary. But that is taken as a heresy according to the Bible, and therefore he's expelled from such a small community. And he's expelled from the community because since he doesn't have the male organs, he can't vow chastity. And so he can't be a monk. He's impure. He's not worthy of any love. So you have a quote there, Artemenstus there, when he sees his body. He's never seen one of these botches that Pliny calls androgyny, not a true male made in God's image, not a true female, shaped by to bear young. Neither fish nor fowl intends its stomach. Therefore, he can't be a brother anymore because he's not a man, and he's not a whole man, therefore he can't know chastity. He's incomplete, and he's not qualified to be there. So he's outcasted. Ironically, in a sad moment in the novel, Trian does not understand what is wrong with his body. He was born with that body, and he prays to God, and he says, beyond shame now it seems, even beyond grief, he's weak as water. He remembers he hasn't eaten since dawn. He sees down on the rock, he feels very old. He says, he is the salt, he's trying to recall. For you are God, my only safe haven. Why have you cast me off? So this precisely epitomizes the drama of his condition. He's been othered for being different, and he's been abandoned by Christian God. So that is the ending of their life there. That is the ending of Christianity as well. And I want to add with the metaphor that runs throughout the whole novel. The novel is divided by chapters and by sections. Among the sections, introduced in every section, there's this Trinity note in the novel. So 3 is a very important number in the novel. The significance of this triad is highlighted on a number of occasions. At a symbolic level, as I mentioned, each text is marked by the Latin image of the Trinity knot, which has 3 interconnected arcs, also known as the Latin triangle. The 3 need each other. There are many quotes in the novel that says that together we survive. If something goes wrong with one of us, we'll all die. So also the Trinity knot represents unity, represents eternity, because there is no beginning or end in the lives. Represents the family as well. Obviously, it's the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And they also have the knot, the triangle shaped in their heads. So of course we're adding the sacred number because of the Holy Trinity. So when Trine is spelled from the island, it is clear that all of them will die. So that is when Cormac questions Arad last time. When he questions him, he's rejected. He rejects his own vows. He abandons. They both abandon the prior in the island. Now, at the end of the novel, I'm sorry for the spoiler, but I can't explain, the whole thing without spoiler. But you see two complete opposed images: the two men escaping from this fanatic fire, who see them as demons. While the prior says, as I said, quoting from there, he's happy that they haven't gone because they are demons, and he says, and the Lord said, I will wipe none from the face of the earth, and the beasts, and the creepy birds, and the creepy things, and the birds, for I repent, I never made them. So, being so delusional, he does not know that he's being trapped by his own irrational demons. Obviously, although we know he's going to die on his own, he feels that now he has a whole island to himself, and that he's close to heaven because he's really, really high. So, just to conclude, I hope you have been able to kind of prove that rather than an adventure story, Donoghue's narrative explores the human versus nature dichotomy that results in this inharmonious relationship with dramatic consequences for both the ecosystem and human beings. So if we analyze Haven as a story of survival, a Robinson Crusoe kind of narrative in their struggle to subsist in an inhabited place, then obviously we cannot forget that they have made an indelible impact on the land. But the irony and true thing is that no human being has been able to survive in the island after them. So the novel being to be read as an ecological warning that explores human destruction in the name of God, since life in the scary Michaels seems to pertain only to the plants and the birds and the ecosystem, and not to the human beings, and that has been for centuries, and I think we should be. So at the end of the novel, the ending of the novel suggests that humans cannot survive if they fight against nature and against themselves, and that that's when there's a quote that always makes full sense. So though the Anthropocene is easily associated with modernity and with the blueprint, I want to argue that Donoghue book demonstrates that before industrialization, before capitalism, before the liberal economy, before other ecological disasters, human beings were